I've analyzed thousands of emails from the biggest e-com brands in the world, and I found something strange. They're all doing the exact same things, the same copy frameworks, the same design principles, and the same psychological triggers. And most e-com brands that I talk to are doing none of these things. Over the past few years, we created thousands of emails for our e-com clients, and we figured out exactly what works and what doesn't. Our e-com clients generate between 30 to 50% of their total revenue from these emails. And in this video, I'm breaking down the copy, the design, and the psychology behind every high converting email so you can steal it for your own brand today. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Let's go through the cost of bad emails. Think of your emails as the building blocks of your entire retention system. Like bricks in a building, emails are the single repeatable units in your email program. If these building blocks are well thought out, then you're going to be able to create a skyscraper. However, if these blocks are crooked, then your program will eventually fail. The problem with bad emails is that they will build resentment, and the spam complaint rates are the clearest signal that an email program is actually going wrong. So when it gets high, then it means that people are resenting your brand or your content, and that's why they end up reporting you as spam. So spam complaint rate, when it's high, it equals strong sign that your emails are bad or feel unwanted. High unsubscribe rate, on the other hand, could mean that you are sending too many emails. So these are basically two categories of people. Sometimes if you are sending too many emails or your subscribers are not interested in receiving them, they will just go ahead and unsubscribe. However, if they take the extra step and report you as spam, even though they subscribed initially, it means that they are annoyed now. And that's why bad emails create a negative association or a negative affinity with your brand. So they are very, very dangerous. They will also eat into your profitability and cause you unnecessary stress. So I want you to ask yourself if there are any e-com brands that you actually look forward to opening their emails. And that's what positive affinity is. And for me, one of those brands is called Graza, which is an olive oil brand. So there are two categories of e-commerce brands. The first ones think in the push mentality, basically blast the list, shove products, spray and pray. And the second one is more about pull mentality, which is creating value, building anticipation, and make them want more for your brand. The objective of your emails is to make subscribers feel a dopamine hit every time they see your brand or something associated with it in their inbox. Emails that people like and want to open will create momentum, trust, and appetite for more content from you. So this is the first example from Graza here. They literally have a music playlist that people can play, and then at the bottom they share some recipes here. So just by opening this email, you will feel hungry. The second one is from a product collaboration with AreaWare. And the third one is an announcement that Graza is now available at Costco. So you will see here that the emails are very well designed. The copy also aligns perfectly with their tone of voice. So let's go through how to create emails that your subscribers look forward to opening. So I talked to a lot of e-com brands, and one of the biggest complaints that I get from them is that they say, hey, the providers or the email agencies that we worked with in the past, they did not get our branding guidelines and tone of voice as well. This is one of the biggest issues I hear from e-com brands, especially more established brands with refined branding guidelines and tone of voice. They feel that their emails do not align very well with the rest of their funnel. Think of your emails as a room in your home. So you don't want people to open the door and then find a dark dungeon. You want the email to be just an extension or an arm of your brand, because consistent branding equals familiarity plus anticipation. Before you send a single email, make sure that your branding guidelines and tone of voice are locked in first. So this means your colors and fonts, your visual identity, which will make your brand instantly recognizable. The second thing is going to be imagery style. These are photos, illustrations, tone. Keep it consistent with your website, your ads. And the third one is going to be the tone of voice, which is how your brand sounds. So every word, every email should align with your tone of voice. Here's an example from one of our clients that's called Flings. You'll see their ad on the left here. It's a meta ad, and their website in the middle, and then an email here on the left. And they see that we use the same colors, the same visual aids, the same illustrations, the same photography, etc. Let's go through the tone of voice here. Your brand should sound the same every single time, because inconsistency kills trust. So imagine one of your friends who speaks differently every single time you meet. Sometimes he's thoughtful, sometimes he's vulgar, and you think that he's actually gone crazy. So the same thing applies to your brand. Some examples here from Apple is typically minimalist copy, innovative and aspirational. From Nike, it's motivational, empowering and bold. And from Red Bull, it's energetic, adventurous and edgy. So if you're just starting out and you don't already have tone of voice guidelines for your brand, so all you have to do is use Claude to build those guidelines. So what you feed it is basically your product's ideal customer profile, differentiators, so basically how your products and brand are different from the competitors, plus some buzzwords. And what you get back is ready to use tone of voice guidelines. Let's go through copywriting here. Question that I hear all the time in the e-com space is which type of copy converts better? Is it direct response copy or brand copy? This is a classic fight in the marketing space. It's basically like Apple versus Android. In terms of the key differences, differences. The first one is goal. For brand copy, it's typically used to build long-term loyalty and identity, but for direct response copy, the goal is to drive immediate action, whether it's clicks or sales or opt-ins. The tone of brand copy is typically emotional, includes a lot of storytelling, and also aspirational. For direct response, is typically very persuasive, urgent, and action-focused. For metrics, brand copy is very difficult to measure. You can basically use brand sentiment analysis or awareness, but for direct response copy, it's very measurable. So you basically check click rates, conversion rates, ROI, etc. As examples and use cases, we typically like to use brand copy in taglines, headlines, sub-headlines, top of funnel awareness, and direct response copy for ads, product descriptions, sales emails, mid to bottom of the funnel. So we typically like to use brand copy at the top of the funnel to get awareness, and then use direct response copy to drive action at the mid or bottom of the funnel. So the right question here is not which type of copy you should use. It should be when and where to use each type. So the first thing it depends on is your brand and products. Let's say, for example, fashion, we typically use more brand copy. And if you are selling a product that solves a particular pain point, then we tend to use more direct response copy. The second one is going to be the stage of your brand. So if you are a new brand, we typically lean towards direct response more to try to get sales and validate our products. And if you are an established brand and you have more budget, then you lean more towards brand copy. That's why you see big brands like Coca-Cola, for example, run only brand awareness ads and almost never direct response. The third one is going to be the funnel stage. So top of funnel, typically we like to use brand copy, and mid to bottom of the funnel, we like to use direct response to drive action. And by the way, all of these rules are breakable here. So I've seen many new brands, for example, rely on brand copy instead of direct response. However, the ideal setup is to blend both. So basically try to build relationship at the top of the funnel and get awareness. And then at the mid to bottom of the funnel, we try to use direct response copy to drive people to take action and place an order. So one common issue that everyone experiences when they start writing copy is writer's block. So you basically open a blank page and try to write an email. However, 15 minutes later, you still have no words on the screen. The way we write copy for our clients is to always start with what's called a copywriting framework. So think of these as plug and play formulas, proven to convert and ready to apply for your brand. The 5 highest converting copywriting frameworks that we use for our clients are the BAB, before after bridge, PAS, problem agitate solution, FAB, features advantages benefits, ADA, attention interest desire and action, and PASTER, which is problem amplify story transformation offer and response. So let's start with the BAB framework. This is one of my absolute favorites. So you basically paint the pain and then show them the dream or the outcome and then build a bridge through your products. So as an example here in the pet niche, the before is you walk into your living room and it looks like your dog exploded, fur on the couch, fur on the floor, fur somehow on the ceiling fan. So this is the problem that our product solves. Then we talk about the after scenario, which is a spotless floor, a couch you can sit on without wearing your dog, with a life where fur stays on the dog, not your yoga pants. So this example brand has also a fun, light-hearted tone of voice. And then you bridge the before and after with your product. So we say, for example, meet the Furinator 3000, the self-cleaning robot vacuum that rescues your floor and your sanity. Click below. So this is where we try to drive action. So this works incredibly well. And generally speaking, humor works incredibly well in copy, unless you're selling heavy duty industrial equipment or something like that. However, even for our B2B clients, we still like to use a lot of humor and fun, unless your brand explicitly does not use that. Because if you can make people smile or laugh, they are more likely to like your brand. And we know that people buy from brands that they like. The second copywriting framework, which is my absolute favorite, is the problem agitate solution. And this is specific to products that solve a particular pain point. So you basically poke the wound, and then the second phase, some marketers call it twisting the knife, which I know sounds horrible, but it's basically trying to make that pain vivid in your customer's imagination, and then ride in with the cure. So you basically present your brand or your products as the solution. Let's go through the problem here. Identify a real pain point. An example could be struggling to get a good night's sleep. So this is for a mattress. And then you agitate it a little bit. You try to make it more vivid in their imagination, so they start feeling the pain. This is where you expand on the consequences. Poor sleep leads to fatigue, leads to less productivity, no energy for hobbies or social life, long-term health damage. So you basically try to paint a vivid picture, and then you present your brand or products as a solution. You show what life looks like after. Example, wake up refreshed, focused, and ready to crush the day. Great way we like to use this copywriting framework is to look at our clients' best customer reviews, especially the ones that are long and they talk about the pain they were experiencing before trying your product, and then the transformation and how your product helped them achieve the desired outcome. So these work incredibly well because you are not using your own words, you are using your customers' words. The third copywriting framework is going to be the FAB, which is features, advantages, benefits. benefits. So when you hear a brand say our product has the latest 4D Max Hyper Interactive Quantum display, literally nobody cares. Maybe a small percentage of your audience, less than 5%, are nerds about your products and they love knowing more about the features, but the vast majority of your customers only care about benefits. So here's an example here for the feature, custom fitted nose clips that reduce snoring. The advantage here, we go through why that feature matters, which in this case helps you breathe quietly while sleeping. And the benefit is going to be how it improves their life. An example could be your partner won't throw a pillow at your face at 3 a.m. Again, lighthearted and fun if your tone of voice aligns with this. So as a rule of thumb, every single time you mention a feature in your email, make sure to attach it to an advantage or a benefit. The ADA framework, which I believe is the most popular framework in the marketing space, it's attention, interest, desire, and action. The attention is supposed to stop the scroll and grab them instantly. As an example, your bag cold, it's suing you for that old mattress. So this is again lighthearted and fun. Try to get people to smile. The second phase is interest, basically to keep them reading, make it relevant. Our memory foam remembers what comfort feels like even if you've forgotten. Then we try to build desire and make them really want it by painting the outcome. As an example here, upgrade to better sleep and wake up feeling like King Kong ready to conquer the day. And for the action, you basically tell them exactly what to do. As an example, order now for 20% off. Your spine will thank you. So the fifth and last copywriting framework that we use for our ecom clients is the PASTOR. This is problem, amplify, story, transformation, offer, and response. So let's start with the problem here. You name the pain. As an example, still stuck swiping left on love. So this is for a dating app. Dating feels like a second job and the pay sucks. Then you amplify the problem and make it feel urgent. You say, at this rate, your cat might become your emergency contact. Again, very fun and lighthearted. And then we present them with a real story or transformation from one of our customers. After 13 bad first dates, Alex downloaded our app and met his soulmate on date number 14. And then we go through the transformation and try to make people imagine how their life is going to look like. Your weekends could go from watching Netflix alone to having someone argue about pizza toppings. And then you present your offer by presenting the solution clearly. Our AI dating app finds your perfect match in under 24 hours, completely free. And then the response. So this is basically the call to action. Sign up today. Love won't swipe on itself. So this is a very effective copywriting framework. A great way to think about the brand copy is to always think, what would Apple write? Brand copy is typically very simple, very elegant, and emotionally resonant. So this is an example of a tagline from Apple that is light years ahead. So this is absolutely perfect. So elegant. It has clever wordplay as well. So they don't only mean light years ahead of the competition. They also put a full stop after light, which means that the product weight is also light. It describes a benefit as well, which is the lightness of the product, and subtly shades the competition, all in 3 words. So I really love this tagline. For Nike, it's the famous "just do it." It's probably the best tagline out there. Clean, elegant, speaks directly to their ideal customers, and absolutely timeless. So what makes brand copy great? The first thing is simple. So you don't use jargon, you don't beat around the bush, no fluff. Every word in its place. So for our clients, we like to use less but more impactful words. The second one is going to be emotional, connects with how your customer wants to feel. And the third one is going to be on brand and aligns with tone of voice. So instantly recognizable, consistent across every touch point. Here is where we typically use brand copy in our emails. The first one is going to be subject lines. So this tends to build intrigue and get people to open. So as an example, instead of saying "new arrivals this week," imagine if you just said "just do it," and then you had maybe an exclamation mark or 3 dots. People get really curious and they are more likely to open your email. The second place we use brand copy is in taglines and headlines. This is probably the most common place for brand copy. So we basically use a clever headline at the top of our emails to grab attention and pull the subscribers in. And the third one is using it in CTA. So instead of generic CTAs that say "buy now" or "shop now" or something like that, we can say something like "taste the difference" for a food brand. So on brand CTAs convert much better and feel more natural. So these are the most common spots we use brand copy, but feel free to use it anywhere you want in your email. Let's go through the characteristics of brand copy. So the first one is going to be clear and concise. So no jargon, no fluff, as you mentioned before. Every word earns its place. An example from Apple is "think different." The second one is that it needs to complement your visuals. So copy and design work together as one. The words enhance the visual story. As an example from KFC is their famous tagline "finger licking good." The third one is that it needs to be clever and creative. So smart wordplay that fits within your tone of voice and not just try to be clever for the sake of it. An example from before, light years ahead. And it also needs to be emotionally resonant and trigger an emotional response. So here you can tap into desires, aspirations, and feelings, trust, excitement, nostalgia, and empowerment. And this is an example from L'Oreal, "because you're worth it." The fifth and last is that it needs to be aligned with your brand values. So reflect reflects your mission and principles, builds trust through authenticity. The best example I could find is from Patagonia. We're in business to save our home planet. So when we talk about copywriting frameworks, a lot of brands think they just apply to direct response, but they actually also apply to branded copy. So the 3 brand copy frameworks that we use for our clients, the first one is called the Golden Circle: why, how, and what. The second one is the hero's journey, and the third one is going to be emotional branding. Let's start with the first one. For the why, we highlight your purpose and mission. Example, we are committed to protecting the environment. For the how, we highlight how you fulfill that mission. Example, by crafting sustainable outdoor gear. And for the what, we list the tangible products or services that fulfill this mission. As an example, eco-friendly jackets made from 100% recycled material. The second framework is the hero's journey. This is one of the most popular ones, and this will allow you to position your brand as the enabler of your customer's transformation. So the first one is the call to adventure. Introduce a problem or aspiration. As an example, the wilderness is calling. The second phase is going to be crossing the threshold. Show how your brand guides them forward. Example, with our gear, you will brave the elements with confidence. And the third one is transformation. So you basically celebrate the customer's success. As an example, from weekend hikes to mountain triumphs, every journey starts with the right tools. So the third framework is called the emotional branding framework. And this works by aligning your message with a specific emotional trigger. The first one is going to be happiness. So you basically tap into joy and delight. As an example, experience the joy of craftsmanship. The second one is going to be fear, highlighting what they risk missing out on. As an example, don't settle for ordinary when extraordinary is within reach. And the third one is pride, speak to their self-image and aspiration. As an example, because you deserve the best. And then you go through belonging, which creates a sense of community and identity. So as an example, join a community that values timeless elegance. So with that, you now have the most effective copywriting frameworks that you can use for your ecom emails. So let's go through the second step, which is design. And one common thing that I see in the ecom space is people saying, hey, design does not matter as much, focus on the words. And this is the most ridiculous claim I hear in the space, because you are selling physical products that are visual in nature. So the best way to present those products is through visuals. That's not to say copy is not important, but visuals are also crucial for e-commerce. Keep in mind that visuals evolved way before speech, and our brains actually process visuals 60,000 times faster than words. So the right email design is the one that directs subscribers step by step towards the purchase decision. So it needs to have a function and not just be pretty for the sake of it. So 5 rules of effective design. The first one is eye-catching header. Think of it as a book cover, hook people in and make them want to keep reading. The second one is to optimize your CTA. So the first thing is to always place the first CTA above the fold to boost your click-through rate. The second thing is to have one CTA or one objective per email. If you have multiple destinations for your email, then people will get distracted and take no action. And the third thing is, instead of using generic CTAs, like for example, shop now or buy now, use either branded or benefit-based CTAs, like taste the difference, for example. The third one is going to be to optimize for mobile, because for a lot of industries, most people are going to be browsing your emails on mobile. So make sure that your text is legible, check dark mode, and also test your email on smaller screens. The fourth thing is to keep the emails short, because if they get too long, they will get cut by email providers like Gmail, for example, and people will not see the entire email. So we typically stick to 2 to 3 sections max. We have the hook, the CTA, expand CTA, plus social proof and CTA as an example. And the last rule is to stay on brand. So your emails are just a continuation of your funnel. Email branding should be consistent with your website and other channels as well. So let's go through the subject line and preview text, which are arguably the most important element of your email, because if your subject lines do not get people to open, then literally nothing else matters. So for the subject line, it needs to pre-sell your email and get people curious enough so they can open it. Keep it 4 to 7 words. The preview text is basically an extension of the subject line. It elaborates on what's inside, and it also needs to be 4 to 7 words. One important thing to note here is to never use clickbait in your subject lines. So sure, you will get a lot of opens. However, this will destroy trust for your brand and result in a higher spam complaint rate. So here are the most effective subject line and preview text formulas that we use for our clients. The first one is curiosity or hook based. This leaves a gap that the customer wants to close, and it works incredibly well. As an example, we say Oprah loved this. She said she uses it daily. Second example is actually from one of our clients. Guess what ingredient we just added to our formula? It starts with ACE. Again, uses that curiosity to get people to open. The ingredient was actually honey. And the third example is this versatile jacket can be worn with anything. Add this staple to your wardrobe. So again, gets people curious about this versatile jacket so they can open and find out more. The second type is benefit based, and this works incredibly well. So basically we lead with an outcome and make them feel it. As an example of a microphone brand, we say sound like your favorite podcaster, the mic that's used by, and then we have 3 dots, or we highlight the person that is using this mic, like this one, for example. Another example is wake up energized and ready for the day. Again, a benefit-based subject line here. And the third example, this will save you 30 minutes per day. So this one is curiosity plus benefit, because it will get people thinking what will save me 30 minutes per day. Plus there is a benefit baked into it. The third type of subject lines we use for our clients is direct. And this is great for promos, clear, urgent, and no fluff. So for example, if we have a sale, we say enjoy 30% off today only. So no need to be clever or smart with it. We list the actual sale for people who are interested. The second example could be get free shipping with your order. And the third one is our new blender is here. So this is for a product launch. In terms of using emojis or not, a lot of people think that emojis could hurt your deliverability, but we actually disagree, and we tested this before. They're not as important as most people think they are, but they could make your subject line stand out in the crowded inbox. A pro tip here is to always write your subject line and preview text after you actually finish your email. It's much easier this way. So let's go through the top header here, which is the most important section of your email. This basically presents your big idea and pulls people in so they can read more. You'll have your logo at the top here, instant brand recognition, always included. The second one is to include a visual in terms of an image or a photo that supports the big idea. The third thing is to include a clever and creative tagline or headline. This is very, very important. This is basically what hooks the subscriber and gets them either to click or scroll down to read more. The fourth thing is going to be the supporting text that comes below your tagline. And the fifth thing is going to be the CTA. And in most cases, we like to have the CTA above the fold to target those high intent shoppers. So for a lot of people, they don't need to scroll down. If they like the offer at the top, they just click and go to the website. And for the people who are a little bit lower intent and they need more information, then they scroll down the email and they might click on the second or third CTA. So here's an example from Allbirds here. Super simple. They have the logo at the top. They have a big photo here. They have a tagline, some supporting text, and then two CTAs here: shop women's tree glider, shop men's tree glider. So super simple and elegant. And keep in mind that we typically include 2 to 3 sections per email. We like to make them digestible and quick to scan through. The problem with longer emails is that sometimes they get clipped by email providers, as I mentioned before. Try to only include 2 to 3 sections max per email. So the second section should expand on the big idea that you highlighted at the top section. So from the Allbirds example above, they chose to highlight other products from the same categories. So they basically highlighted some photos here of other products, more to move you, and then some text, and then CTAs at the bottom here. So for the second section, we typically either have unique selling propositions. Let's say, for example, you're launching a new product, or maybe you did a product spotlight. So the top section should highlight the product front and center, and the second section should be about unique selling propositions. So this is basically where we highlight what makes the product stand out. We can also have some social proof from real customers or press and authorities. So these are magazine features or maybe influential people that you partnered with. The third section is the footer. So it should contain either product categories, for example, quick links to your main product ranges, your contact info, so people can contact you if they had questions or needed assistance, your rewards program if you offer a loyalty or subscription program, social media links. So a lot of ecom brands have links to their social media here. Ideally, I do not like to include social media links, especially in the important emails that we send, because the problem is that once people click on these links, they will be lost in the vortex that is social media, and they might not come back to your website at all. So use this carefully. The next thing you can highlight is mission and vision, a reminder of why your brand exists and what's in it for your customers. The next one is going to be business address, which is required by law. And the last one is going to be to manage preferences or unsubscribe. So make it easy for people to either opt out or maybe adjust their preferences. You don't need to include all of these things in your footer. Just keep it simple and clean. Here's an example from Graza. They have the logo here. They have some tagline, squeezable, single origin, extra virgin olive oil, some social links here, and then manage preferences and the address at the bottom here. So let's go through examples of great emails and why I like them. So the first one is from Magic Spoon, one of my favorite brands out there. The subject line is "This isn't your average granola," and the preview text, "Try adding this protein boost to your morning." And what I really like about this is the subject line is curiosity based. So basically makes people wonder what the product that isn't your average granola is. The preview text is benefit based. It expands on the subject line by highlighting a product benefit. The top header is absolutely fantastic. It aligns very well with their branding guidelines in terms of color palette, floating objects, as you can see here, the fonts as well. CTA is above the fold in most of their emails, which drives better click-through rates. The tone of voice is playful, fun, and benefit oriented, and no generic CTA like buy now. So they use be extraordinary or try granola. The second section is basically a visual representation of the us versus them concept. So whenever you have a chance to explain something with visuals, it works way, way better than just having a paragraph there. Because as we talked about before, our brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than they process words. So in terms of things to improve for this email, they could could have used a different headline instead of repeating the subject line. So you will notice here in the subject line, they say, this isn't your average granola. And then in the headline or tagline here, they say, this isn't your average granola. So this is a little bit lazy and it will be noticed by your customers. So try to be a little bit more creative with these things. The second thing is they could have added one of their top customer reviews to this product, maybe in a third section or even at the bottom of the second section here. We use social proof in about 60 to 70% of the emails that we send for our clients. It's very, very effective. The second example is from Graza. So the subject line is, this is a sign, and the preview text is for you to stock up on olive oil. So what I like about this email is the subject line is curiosity based. They leave people curious to find out more. The preview text gives a bit of context on the email by highlighting that it's a restock. The top header has incredible branding, colors, fonts, and visual elements that all align with every other channel. So they have a simple headline that says refill cans are back in stock, super simple and direct. And they have a creative action-based CTA. They say crack a can instead of buy now or shop now. So in the second section, they highlight their offer front and center. And you will notice that this brand always leads with kits or bundles instead of single products because they are trying to increase the average order value. This will actually reduce your churn rate and also improve your cash flow. So it's very, very important to try to get people to spend more with every single order. So they also use visual elements or aids to enhance their messaging, like arrows here, for example, or some text here where they say a free funnel for easy refilling as a benefit. So honestly, this brand has one of my absolute favorite email programs in the industry. And it's actually one of those brands that I actually look forward to checking their emails every single time they send one. The third example is from The Honest Company. The subject line is we're one of Oprah's favorite things, and the preview text is get yours now. Again, I like the subject line because it blends both authority and curiosity. So authority is by using Oprah's name, and curiosity by saying, hey, we're one of Oprah's favorite things, get yours now, gets people curious to click and know exactly which products we are talking about. The top header is bold, simple headline. They say big news and then a CTA above the fold here. The second section builds anticipation around these new prints here and emphasizes the benefit of subscribing. So while you saw Graza tries to push the bundles to increase the average order value, if your brand offers a subscription, then it's really important to try to push for that subscription to reduce friction and increase your customer lifetime value. So for things to improve here from a design perspective, the photo at the top here cut directly to the second section. So there is no flow to this email. Typically, we like to have a smooth transition between section 1 and section 2. This is just from a design perspective. For the preview text they used, it does not add a lot to the subject line. Some better alternatives could be check out what she featured, or maybe we list the actual product name here and we say is her favorite. So the fourth example is from Dr. Squatch. The subject line is the one ring rinse is selling out fast, and the preview text is don't be a fool of a took. So what I like about this email is first the subject line, it's scarcity based, gets people to take action before it sells out. The preview text is an actual quote from Gandalf from Lord of the Rings here. It will resonate very well with those fans. For the top header, it uses beautiful visuals, brief and to the point here. You will see that even the CTA is above the fold. They use scarcity based copy like don't miss this epic break. They have a great placement for their rewards program at the top here, and it's actually synced with the subscribers account. It shows them exactly how many reward points they have so they can redeem them if they wish to. In the second section, they basically highlight the product unique selling propositions and benefits in visuals. So easy to scan format emphasizes the benefits of subscribing. Again, they are trying to push for the subscription like with The Honest Company. For things to improve, this is just a small thing. So even though the preview text is a Gandalf quote, some subscribers who might not be familiar with the quote might not get the reference, and they might think that they were called a fool when you say don't be a fool of a took. So generally speaking, we like to stick with positive copy to not make our customers feel bad. The second one is having two different CTAs in one email can split the subscriber's attention between buying the product and entering the giveaway, because here at the top they highlight the product and at the bottom they have a giveaway here. So generally speaking, we like to have one objective and one CTA per email so we can send people to. If you have multiple ones, then people will get analysis paralysis and they will take no action. The fifth example is from Athletic Greens. The subject line is whole body support with foundational nutrition, and the preview text is invest in your health. So what I like here is the subject line is benefit based, so clear and direct. Preview text is emotional trigger, so basically gets people thinking about their health. The top header is simple and clever tagline with wordplay. They say put your money where your health is instead of where your money is. Great product in action photos. So photos with your product in action work much better than just your product photography. Showing real people using your products will actually increase your click-through rate. For the second section is a smart use of anchoring with relatable framing, so people instantly see the value. So as an example that I see often used, for a price of a Starbucks a day, you can wake up energized and ready to tackle the day. day. Here they highlight that it's the equivalent of 15 coffees on the go, of 4 drop-in workout classes, and 2.5 meals dining out. So they try to anchor their subscription to common things that people spend money on, and they try to position it as something superior. So instead of spending your money on 2.5 meals dining out, why don't you get athletic greens and invest in your health? The third section has a great emotional trigger by saying there is no better investment than an investment in your health, and they have a CTA at the bottom here which says invest in you. As things to improve here, the email looks a little bit bare bone. More persuasive copy could help get people to subscribe, so they don't use a lot of persuasive or emotional copy except for the invest in your health tagline, and this is very common with Athletic Greens. I actually did a breakdown of their marketing strategy compared to IM8, which is a new supplement brand that managed to scale to $100 million run rate in less than 11 months when it took AG1 about 10 years to achieve the same. If you'd like to watch that video, just click on the link in the description. The second thing to improve here is that the design feels too sectioned and boxes here. So you can see the top section here is a box, the second section is a box, and then the last section here. Generally speaking, with our emails, we like to make them smooth and flow better so we can lead people towards the CTA. This will make the reading experience better. So now we're done with the copy and design. We're going to go to the 7 most effective psychological triggers that we use for our clients' emails based on Robert Cialdini's book called Influence. This is one of my absolute favorite marketing books, and I highly recommend it. So he goes through 7 principles that you can use. The first one is called reciprocity. Second one is called social proof, scarcity, authority, commitment, and consistency, liking, and unity. And we're going to go through them one by one. First one is reciprocity. Scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. This would be in the form of offering a free guide, maybe a checklist, a video resource, a cookbook, discount code, free gift, exclusive content. People tend to reciprocate if you give them something for free. By giving first, you tap into the reciprocity principle and your customer feels compelled to give back by making a purchase. Most humans don't actually like to be owed favors. The second principle is one of my favorites, which is the social proof. Again, as I mentioned before, we use some form of social proof in about 60 to 70% of the emails we send for our clients. And this could be customer reviews, could be testimonials, user-generated content. 1,000+ customers love this. The reason it works is that humans are social creatures. So when you see a huge line in front of a new bakery in your neighborhood, you are more likely to check it out. When others vouch for your products, customers will trust you more, especially if your subscribers can see themselves in those customers who submitted reviews. So the third one is going to be scarcity, super effective if it's not fake. One thing that I see often in the e-com space is that a lot of brands, they use fake scarcity or urgency, which actually will hurt your brand long term. So please refrain from using fake scarcity. People will eventually figure it out and they will have a negative affinity with your brand because of it. So urgency is typically a function of time, something like 24 hours left, 6 hours left, expires at midnight. And scarcity is a function of unit. When you say 100 units left, 3 units left. So the reason this works incredibly well is that fear of missing out is real. So use scarcity to let your customers know your products and promos won't wait around forever. The fourth principle is called authority. And as an example, you can use expert endorsements, certifications as seen on doctor recommended, made Oprah's list, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend, etc. So the reason it works is that when a authority figure or expert backs your product, your email becomes infinitely more persuasive. Think of the old example of doctor recommended or as seen on. I'm going to walk you through the welcome flow of IM8, the brand that I mentioned before, how they use authority plus other psychological triggers to get people to buy their subscription. But first, let's go through the rest of the principles here. The first one is commitment and consistency. And as an example, you can use language like, as a conscious shopper, you'll love our sustainably sourced products. And the reason it works is that people do anything to avoid cognitive dissonance. And this is actually the same principle that those people on the street use when they come to you and always ask you a question that they are 99% sure that you're going to say yes to. They say, for example, do you like dogs or do you care about animals? And then they go through the conversation. At the end, if they ask you for a donation to their dog shelter, you're going to feel very icky if you don't donate because you already agreed and said that you like dogs. People will do anything to avoid cognitive dissonance. Principle number 6 is going to be liking. As an example, humanize your brand by sharing behind the scenes content or a relatable story. So founder content works incredibly well for e-com at the moment. And the way to apply it is to use behind the scenes, show how your products are made or the people behind the brand. You can have relatable stories, share a story about how your product made someone's day, use warm and friendly language. For example, write like a human and not a corporation. And the reason this works is the old adage, people buy from other people or companies they like. The more your brand feels human and relatable, the more your subscribers will trust you and buy from you. The last one is going to be unity. So the initial version of the book only had the first 6, but then he added a 7th principle, which is very effective. As an example is build a sense of community in your emails, like join 10,000 other fitness lovers lovers who are crushing their goals this month. And the reason it works is that humans are tribal creatures, for better or worse. When your customers feel like they are part of a movement or a community, they are more likely to engage and buy from you. So here's an example of how these principles are used in the welcome flow of IM8. You will see that literally in the first email, they lead with authority, which is David Beckham, famous soccer player here. They highlight more authority here in terms of doctors and influencers. They have even more authority here by highlighting their scientific board, and they do a lot of name calling here, trying to borrow more authority. So this guy here is the founding director of Yale Griffin Prevention Research Center. They use a lot of authority in their emails. Again, more authority in the sixth email here in terms of doctors, even like Dustin Poirier from the UFC, fighters, influencers. They heavily rely on authority in their emails. Another principle they use often is social proof. So in this example, they highlight some of their best customer reviews, and they also highlight urgency and scarcity in the last email they send in their welcome flow as well. Super, super effective. And we like to use all of these psychological principles in our emails and also opt-in forms to try to get more subscribers and more customers. I actually recorded another video with more psychological triggers that you can use in your emails. So if you're interested, just click on the link in the description. So let's go through some hacks that will save you hundreds of hours plus thousands of dollars. So the first one is to use email search engines for inspiration. There are a couple of ones here. The first one is called Really Good Emails. So all you have to do is just go to their website and maybe type the email that you're looking for, whether it's social proof, product announcement, Halloween email, checkout abandonment, cart abandonment email. And the second one is called milled.com. This is specifically for competitive research. If you have a bigger brand in your industry, or even if you have a brand that you really like, all you have to do is just type their name and you will see all of the email campaigns they are sending, including the frequency as well. So we had emails that we created for our clients that were featured on Really Good Emails, like one from Flings and from Tutu as well. The next thing that's going to save you a ton of time is using universal blocks on klaviyo. A brand owner once told me that they had to manually update over 50 emails because they forgot to set them as universal block. This is very, very important. And we typically use universal blocks for things that are reusable or things that are going to change in the future. So for example, if you are using the same logo in all of our emails, then we like to use it as a universal block. So later, for example, if we decide to change the logo or even the menu at the top, we can just change it once and then it will update in all of the emails that use that block. So here example of a footer from one of our clients. So we basically used it in 28 emails. And if we wanted to change something, we just change it once and then it will auto update in all the flows we have. So the best places to use these universal blocks are in the footer. So add or update info across all emails in one click. If you wanted to update, for example, the address or social media icons, we typically use it for the header as well in case you updated your logo or changed the top menu. And we like to include it in social proof. Let's say, for example, we had new updated press features like new magazines have talked about us. Or for example, we have more social proof. Instead of 14,000 5-star reviews, now we have 15,000. We just update it once and it will update in the rest of the emails. The next section is to use Claude projects or custom GPTs to create a brand brain. This will be the source of truth for everything you use for your brand, whether it's coming up with new ideas or copy for your brand. My personal favorite is Claude projects, but if you're using ChatGPT, you can use these custom GPTs as well. And all you have to do is basically feed it this prompt here. So feel free to feed it your website, the products that you are selling, your unique selling propositions, your ideal customer profiles, and even reviews from your customers so it has better context. So again, we like to use Claude for copy because it produces a tone of voice that's very similar to human copy. A pro tip is to actually feed Claude or ChatGPT this exact guide that I'm going through right now. You can either grab the transcription and feed it to it, or I'm also going to link to it in the description below as a guide. All you have to do is to feed it to the AI tool so it understands how to create high converting emails for ecom. The next thing is going to be the highest leverage A/B tests. And I see a lot of ecom brands wasting months testing things that don't really move the needle. So these are the highest leverage things that will produce most of the results for your ecom brand. The first one is going to be the subject line, because if your emails are not opened, then literally nothing else matters. So if you can go from a 20% open rate to 35% on a 10K list, this will make a huge impact in your revenue. So instead of having 2,000 people seeing your offer, you now have 3,500 people. So the second most important thing to test is going to be the angle. So test a direct discount email against a social proof email. As an example, for a Valentine's Day offer, we can test reviews from last Valentine's Day buyers versus a straight X% off offer. The third one is going to be plain text versus graphic. So plain text emails typically feel personal, like a message from the founder or even from your support team. They drive strong engagement and boost deliverability as well. The fourth thing is going to be testing different copywriting frameworks that we went to earlier. For example, you can test the BAB against the PAS framework and see which one works for that particular product. And the fifth thing is going to be the sending time. So just trying to figure out when your subscribers are mostly active and engaging with your emails. One thing to note is to always test one thing at a time, because if you test multiple things, you will not know which of these things actually resulted in the improvement. Always test one thing at a time. Let's go through the final campaign checklist here. Make sure to go through this checklist before you send any email. The first one is to make sure your subject line is enticing enough to get people to open. Curiosity works wonders here. Make sure your subject line pre-sells your email and is not misleading or clickbaity. This is very, very important. And the third thing is to make sure your preview text gives more context to your email and expands on your subject line. Again, a small improvement in subject line could result in a massive improvement in open rates. So the second thing is the email body. Always compress your graphic emails before you upload them and send them. So we typically use a free tool that's called TinyPNG. Feel free to use any tool out there. Platforms like Klaviyo now have a native feature where it allows you to basically compress your graphics. So make sure to add alt tags to all images within your emails. So email apps like Gmail and Yahoo like alt tags in case they weren't able to load your graphics. Then ask yourself, does your headline, tagline get people curious and excited about reading more? So make sure to use brand copy to come up with something either clever or benefit focused. The next thing is to always try to keep the first button above the fold. So I understand that for some emails, this might not be possible, but it will increase your click rate. The next thing is that if you can explain something with visuals, it works way, way better than text. So feel free to use icons, GIFs, visual aids, etc. And the last one in terms of the email body is to try to have one CTA destination or objective per email. If you have multiple destinations, like in the example from Dr. Squatch, they had the product and at the bottom they had a giveaway, then this will divide the subscribers' attention and it will reduce the performance from your email. Before sending your emails, always optimize for mobile and dark mode as well. So you can go ahead and send tests to yourself just so you can see how the email looks on different devices. And the last thing is to double check everything to make sure there are no mistakes or typos. So these will negatively impact your brand's perception. There you have it, the ultimate guide to creating high converting emails for your ecom brand. So if you'd like to create emails that generate revenue for your brand, if you're interested, I'm happy to offer you a free in-depth audit of your entire program where I show you exactly what's missing, what could be improved, and how much more revenue you'll be able to generate when all of the improvements are implemented. This is 8 to 10 pages of expert recommendations specifically tailored to your brand. So if you're interested, click on the link below to schedule a quick call with me. See you in the next one.